Netflix's Castlevania has caused a storm on social media because it spits in the face of real Castlevania fans, and now critics are defending it, saying Rotten Tomato critic scores are reliable and much more accurate than the user ones. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting the channel through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. So this article is from Forbes, and of course I'm using an archive because I'm not going to give them my clicks, okay? They are just trying to bait people into clicking their trash articles where they pat themselves on the back, but it says Netflix's Castlevania Nocturne again proves the uselessness of user reviews. I could say the same exact thing. Netflix's Castlevania Nocturne again proves the uselessness of critic reviews because we have heard time and time again critic reviews are faked, they are purchased. This is a big reason why people do not trust the critics, but they like to ignore that and say, well, I'm different, I'm genuine, my scores are really reliable and accurate. But the critics are the ones giving this series a 100%. I'm sorry, there are such few shows and movies and just products out there that deserve a 100%. It's crazy, and this definitely isn't one of them. But they think that this score is accurate, but this score isn't. Absolute clown world. It is by Paul Tassi, of course. It says, I was excited to see that Netflix's Castlevania Nocturne was reviewing extremely well, a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's not extremely well, that is perfect. That is the best a score can get. That means this series is absolutely flawless according to them, living up to the high scores of the previous show, one of the best game adaptations of all time. And there are shows on Netflix that, will start off on a path that seems like they're trying to represent the source material as accurately as possible, and as they get further into the series, sometimes even in the first season or following seasons, after they've already hooked their audience, they start to deviate away from the source material and just write crap. And that's when they start pushing whatever message the writers wanted into it, like DEI messaging or the typical political narratives, and doing this deviates them further and further from the source material, but they don't care. It's the classic Netflix tactic. They did the same thing with The Witcher. It started off really strong, and then as, seasons went on, it fell off of a cliff. Paired with the quality of the series, like animation, CGI, or voice acting dropping off as well, it just creates a nightmare situation for fans. It says, I was perplexed by the 52% audience score, literally half of the 100%, and rotten as it was. I wondered what was going on here, and it's another one of these. Of course, people aren't allowed to criticize content that he might agree with, or else you're just an ist or a phobe, or you're just a terrible person who wants to, be negative. You're only giving this show a negative review because you just want to be different and unique. No, that's not the case. This series just isn't as good. It's not because, it has a black character. It's not because there's a gay character. It's because you have taken a beloved property and you have completely twisted it around and shoved current day politics into it, current day narratives that people are sick and tired of seeing. But of course, to them, it's just, you're an ist or you're a phobe. It says, have watched nearly all of the series now. I cannot agree with the bad writing, bad characters complaints that you see in the user reviews, but instead a lot of the focus is put on what else? Its prevalence of black characters and other characters of color, altering a few origin stories to make that work. Yeah, that's the problem. Altering a few origin stories. It doesn't matter if it's one origin story, 5 origin stories, you are still altering material that people have love and nostalgia for. You are altering other characters somebody else created, and that means that altering those origin stories is unacceptable no matter what way you slice the cake. It is not acceptable. But of course, they're just going to ignore that, like, it's really not that big of a deal. It's just a few origin stories altered. Multiple reviews call the franchise ruined and are upset that the free-slaved Annette has the most screen time. My favorite is multiple reviews call it Wokelvania, the most contorted inclusion of the word woke I've ever seen. It's a good show. I don't know what else to say. The worst thing you can say is that it may not quite be as good as the original series, but that's an incredibly high bar, so it's no real surprise. Okay, so why is it not as good as the original series, and then why are you giving it a 100%? If you're admitting it's not as good as another series and this show is not perfect, why are you praising the perfect reviews that it's getting when clearly it doesn't deserve it? Again, to get a 100%, you have to have like the best piece of content ever created, and this show just doesn't warrant these scores. Again, like I said, 100% Critic is not in any way, shape, or form like an acceptable review, and audiences with over 500 ratings, it's sitting at a 48% now, and it had actually went up a little bit. It had started at a 51, and then it went to a 55, and now it's back down to a 48, which is kind of funny. But you can clearly see that 500 ratings versus 13 ratings, which one are we more likely to believe here? Now, there's bound to be people out there who like this series, and that's awesome, and that's great, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it, because I don't want content to come out and be bad, but unfortunately, there's no reason to trust critics. Maybe long ago there was, but not anymore. I mean, we have heard so many times that critic scores are fake, that they have been purchased. I mean, even recently we heard about this situation. A new report reveals a Hollywood PR firm, Bunker 15, paid for positive reviews to manipulate Rotten Tomatoes scores of bad movies. This is why I always say, if you think a piece of content is going to be good, just watch it. Do not believe what the critics have to say, because we have heard that, yes, on sites like Rotten Tomatoes, scores have been manipulated, and there's no reason to go on a Rotten Tomatoes and go, wow, you know what? This is sitting at 100%. This must be one of the best shows ever, because unfortunately, as you can see, the critics usually lean one way, audiences lean another, and it's a very rare occurrence when both are in alignment. When, let's say, one score is at a 75 and maybe the other is at a 78, when they're just that close. Usually they are in extreme opposites of one another, and that's why I just consume the content that I think is going to be good. Sometimes I'll watch series that I know for a fact are going to be bad because I still want to experience it. But yeah, I mean, just taking a very quick peek at the audience scores, people are saying things like, this is absolutely not Castlevania. It's a distortion of the originality of the franchise. Although a good animation and soundtrack, the narrative is poor and have ideas that aim at the deconstruction of the original work. If this doesn't get a season 2, I honestly won't care. Boring characters, villains, not true to the lore, poor voice acting, all the hallmarks of a typical Hollywood cash grab. I can't really say I'm surprised. Again, this is like the Netflix way. They come out with something, the first season or two are really good. Once they've hooked you, they completely drop the ball when it comes to quality. And unfortunately, Netflix's Castlevania is the next on the chopping block. Nocturne is getting absolutely destroyed by users, praised by critics, and these critics are now very angry that we don't happen to like this series. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.